Hello, everybody, and welcome to Talking Fab with Lauren and Lori. We are your Fab divorce coaches. So today we're talking about forgiveness. It's a big, big topic, but it comes up all the time. Is it forgive and forget? Is it learning to let everything go? What does it mean to forgive? Why is it important? And how do you do it? These are the questions that our clients bring to us all the time. So, hi, Lori, welcome. So good to see you.
I know it's been a minute since we've been together, but you're absolutely right. I hear all the time with my clients, I'm hurt, I'm pissed, I don't feel like forgiving, and do I have to? And I know it's something you hear too. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, this is something that comes up all the time, right? Whether it's for divorce, whether it's about something you went through in your childhood, whether it's about something that happened with a friend. There's always times in our life where we feel challenged to forgive people or not, right? And we wonder, there are some benefits maybe of not forgiving, or we might think that, but when we think about the reason that we forgive, right? Forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for you, right? We think about what it feels like to be in that space of anger and to hold on to the hurt. And again, there are some benefits to it, but what is the cost? And I think that that's something that, we can start to look at as we're looking at, do I need to forgive? Is it worth forgiving? And what might that even look like?
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to be real because I am totally where you are. That forgiveness is about you. It frees you. There is real freedom when you forgive. But having gone through this, and I'm going to be real with people, I had a lot to be pissed about, and I had a lot. There was a lot of hurt, and I'm going to give my husband the grace of saying that he is a really good person, as I think most of our ex partners are. I mean, at bottom, very few of us are really marrying monsters, right? But things that he did that at the time it was felt like it was to me, and yeah, let's use this c word, you know, the cheating. It was hard because I had figured myself and configured myself to be like a really good partner. But I felt like he took advantage. So my point is that for a long time I didn't want to forgive because that anger that was married with the forgiveness, I mean with the hurt, it fueled me. It made me strong. It made me brave. It gave me courage that if I could drink more, I might have found in a bottle. But because liquid courage doesn't really work that well for me, the anger, I realized that I utilized it. And to be honest with you, as I look back, being the victim was helpful because even though I wanted the divorce, and by the time I wanted divorce, it really wasn't because of the cheating, that was just a symptom. But being the victim gave me power because I had something kind of over him. Where and when is the time that you need to sit down and really say, forgive?
I think that's the really important point, Lori, right? Like, where and when is the time? And this is not the first thing to tackle, I would say. That if you're really looking at going through a process, I think personally, I think forgiveness is something that comes a little bit later. It comes when there's a little bit of space for some pause and reflection, when you've had a little bit of distance, when you're not maybe in the thick of it anymore. And I find forgiveness to be a tricky word. I think it's a triggering word for a lot of people. And I think we have a lot of preconceived notions. We have a lot of baggage around it. I certainly see what you mean by saying that the anger fueled you? And is anger the same thing? Like, do you give up the kind of anger that fuels action by forgiving or not? This is like a big topic, right? This is very deep. You said that in a way that anger like gave you an advantage. I heard a story this week about a woman who at 37, her husband also cheated on her, she and left. She had three children to raise, no income, no support, and she managed to find, with grace, with support. I can't say she had no support. She did have a supportive family. She managed to go back to law school. And ultimately, she became a judge, right? So she started back at law school at 37 years old. And when the interviewer said, well, how did you do that? How did you find the wherewithal? You're raising three children and nobody, was living with you. How did you find the gumption to go back to law school? And she said, anger. It was the
Mhm.
anger at my, partner. And that's what gave me the fuel to keep going and to
Yeah.
really push through and make sure
Yeah.
that this succeeds.
And I think
But
you
I
make,
don't know that they're the same. I don't know that forgiveness means that you have to give up that fuel.
yeah, and I think you made a really good point of how are they different? How are they? Um, because anger is useful too, right? But only to a certain point. And so that's what I had to teach myself. Sometimes I was like lady getting divorce hat on, and then sometimes it was like self-coach, coaching the lady getting her, divorce on. And one of the things that I had to realize, because I had a certain vision of what my divorce wanted to be, is the anger was only good for so much or to take me so far, because soon anger becomes rancid, and
Right.
then it becomes something that works against you instead of for you. And it's a really fine line that you have to recognize when you're about to cross. And to be honest with you, the only antidote for the anger before it turns rancid for me was forgiving. For me to absolutely
Right.
be able to have that talk with myself, not him, because I know for me, like a lot of women out there, a lot of my clients, sometimes it's hard for them to even broach that situation of what they did, why they did, to give you that closure you think you need. And one of the things that I realized is I don't need that closure from him. It was what it was. It is what it is. And the anger took me so far, but then I was like, all right, how do I get rid of the anger so I'm not getting in my own way before, like I said, it turns rancid? And forgiveness really was the answer. And
Well,
largely, I'm sorry?
I'm sorry. I was just going to say that's the thing. Like anger can fuel you, but it can be motivating, but is it motivating you with clear eyes? Right?
Yeah,
At some point, like you're saying, when it's all about the anger, that becomes something that could keep you stuck and could
yeah,
block you and could veil the way that you're seeing things.
absolutely. And you have to begin to recognize when it's doing just that, when it's getting in the way. And it's getting in the way because you are always angry. You can't hear, or I should say, you can't listen. You're only hearing. And what you're hearing is not necessarily what's being said, but how you're filtering it through all your anger and hurt. So I agree with you that forgiveness, it's about knowing the time when you're ready to forgive, because you've got to be ready to forgive. And coupled with that, it's knowing when it's no longer serving you and it's time to begin to forgive, I mean. So let me ask you
Yeah.
this. Now that I've reached the place where I realize it's time to forgive, what is the first thing that I have to in your opinion, do you need to do to start the process?
Yeah, it's a great question. Um, and I think that it's important to know like the motivation for being ready to forgive, or as I like to call it, let everything go. Because again, I think that word forgiveness comes with a lot of baggage and it does seem to involve the other person. Letting everything go is something that's completely within your control. The first thing that you need to do is know that it's time to move on. You have to be willing to move forward because keep holding on to that anger is a way of staying stuck, right? It's a way of staying in, like you said, that victim mode. It's a way of holding on, in a way, holding on to what you had.
Yeah.
And it becomes, counterproductive. So when you're
That is a
ready to
point.
move,
I'm sorry to talk over you, but that is great point, because holding on to what you had, and the reason you're in this space is because what you had really wasn't serving you anymore. It wasn't there and helping you for your highest good. It wasn't helping you to grow. And yeah, that unwillingness to forgive keeps you stuck in that place.
but you just said something so important that I think most people don't consider, right? Because I've had this conversation with a lot of women, and they say, you know what? I was happy. I was happy with that life. That's the life I chose. I was happy with it. I didn't want something different.
Yeah.
But in retrospect, afterwards, I say to them, would you go back? Would you trade what you now have and go back? And nobody ever says yes.
Yeah, because sometimes we have to be pushed out of the nest. Sometimes we are, it's a question I ask myself and I ask all my clients, are you settling? Are you there out of happiness? Are you out there out of habit? And so often we are there out of habit. And so we don't want to move on. And the truth of the matter is, look, here's the thing. People, whether they be your parents or your siblings or your friends, your lovers, your spouses, they are giving you the best that they can. They are giving you the best that they're capable of. And sometimes you just got to honor that for what it is. And when it's time to move on, just say, you know what? Yeah, I was wronged. Yeah, you did some things that were crappy, and I don't want to forgive you for. And like you said, that's okay, because with time you'll get there if you recognize that sometimes you have to let the forgiveness slide and concentrate on not forgetting. So if you can't forgive sometimes, okay, it will come with time, but I won't forget. I won't forget the lessons I learned, not the hurt that was given to put upon me.
Yes, and you already mentioned, I mean, two of the most important things, right? Letting everything go. Again, that's about you, that's not about the other person. Letting go is, oh my God, it's like taking off a 50-pound weight, right? Just imagine what that would feel like. Just to take off the weight of what you're carrying, the weight of the anger, the weight of the guilt, the weight of just having to recreate, right? Having been forced into something that you didn't feel ready for. Just letting all of that go just feels like immense relief. And that's the thing to keep focused on, right? And then how you do that, well, that's something that we talk all about. We get really deep into that in your F.A.B divorce because it is a process, but it's that process of letting go. And you mentioned, lessons, that there are lessons to be learned, having empathy that people are doing the best they can, and giving yourself grace for wherever you are in that process.
Yeah.
And again, we do that deep dive in our coaching because it is a process. But what I encourage everybody to do is to just keep your eye focused on how good it feels to not necessarily forgive, but to let it go. To
Yeah.
just let it go because that's the anchor that's holding you down and keeping you stuck
Yeah.
and keeping you stuck in that victim mode, keeping you stuck in the anger that's no longer serving you, and keeping you stuck from being able to really move on and create the life that you want to live.
Yes. I mean, that's all great, great information. And I think to kind of wrap it all up, the idea is that forgiveness is tough. A
Mhm.
lot of times, your unwillingness to forgive is because it's part of your power pack as you're getting through this. And so the thing is to recognize when your anger is turning rancid, and the way to keep it from really affecting you in debilitating and unproductive ways as you go through this process is to begin to forgive. And let me ask you this, sometimes it may not be, if I'm not ready to forgive him,
Mm,
forgive myself.
yeah, it's a good place to start,
Yeah.
right? Good place to start because carrying that guilt, the shame, the feeling that you could have done something different. Again, that's it. Forgiving yourself. It's part of that process of letting it all go, of unburdening yourself.
Yeah. Good talk, girl.
Always, we're always a good
Always, I
talk.
know. So, look, if you heard some things here today that resonated with you, if you want to learn more, definitely subscribe, like the video. We're going to keep these chats going. If you have questions, please put them in the comments, and we will get back to them through this venue.
Join us, subscribe, leave your comments. We will answer your questions in these videos as well. And we can't wait to see you next time when we're talking Fab.